There was something I nearly walked straight past. Good thing I didn't. I've been waiting to tell you about it. Before I get into it, whereabouts are you listening from? And what time is it there right now? I always like knowing that. Drop it in the comments if you get a minute, before you settle in properly and doze off to my chatting. I do read them, even the ones left at 3 in the morning. Especially those, actually. Right then. Let me tell you what I was doing when I found it. It's a warm one today, that sort of stillness you get in the middle of summer, where even the bees seem to be taking their time about it. I've been out here a good while now, just pottering, a bit of this, a bit of that. The kind of jobs that don't really end, they just get to a point where you decide you've done enough for one day. There's a robin that's been following me about, keeping a bit of a distance, waiting to see if I turn anything up worth having. I'd stopped for a second earlier, just to stretch my back, and my eyes had landed on the hedge along the far side of the plot. It's thick and green, completely still in the heat. And it had made me think of something I read a while back, about what goes on in hedges like that once it gets dark. Little lives running on a completely different clock to ours. Glowworms, for one. I didn't know much about them until I looked it up. They're not worms at all. As it turns out, they're beetles. And the females can't fly, no wings on them at all. All she can do, once the sun's well and truly down, is climb as high up a grass stem as she can manage and switch her light on, and wait. I don't know why that stuck with me, but it did. Out there, somewhere not far from that same hedge, one of them will be doing just that tonight. Before we get down to facts, I want to tell you a story about a glowworm. Just a story, mind. The real version comes after, but this one is new and never heard before, so I'll give it to you first. There was a glowworm sat low in the grass one evening, glowing away same as always, when a firefly came through. You know, the ones that flash on and off, quick as anything. The firefly slowed down when it saw her. You're doing that wrong, you know. Am I? You are. You've just got the one light stuck on, not moving. I flash mine on and off. It covers more ground that way, catches more eyes. She said, "Does it?" Of course it does. And I don't just sit still doing it either. I'm all over the fields and allotments by the time the night's through. You're still sat on the one stem you started on. She thought about that for a moment. And where does all that get you by the end of the night? The firefly stopped for a second, like he hadn't expected the question. Well, back down, I suppose, same as anywhere else. Then I rest up, ready to do it all again the next evening. So you flash and you fly about, and you cover the whole field, she said, and you end up back where you started, same as me. I suppose when you put it like that, he said. And I stay on my one stem, she said, and glow the one steady light, and I end up right where I started too. Neither of them had much to say after that. The firefly went on flashing his way off across the field, same as before, because that was his way of doing it. And she stayed where she was, glowing steady, because that was hers. Come morning, they'd both end up back in the grass regardless, neither of them any further along than the other, just two different ways of getting through the same night. And maybe that's the whole point of it. Really, there's no one right way to get where you're going in life. Some flash about and cover the whole field. Others find their one stem and have contentment being there. It doesn't make either of them wrong. Same with most things, if you think about it. Same as how some people need a story to drift off, and others need something else altogether. The sound of rain, as you'll hear later in this video. Or nothing at all. Each to their own. There's no right way of doing it, just your way. I might come back to a few more of these as we go along tonight, little stories like that one. They tend to turn up in my head while I'm pottering about the allotment, minding my own business. not really thinking about much of anything, and then one of them just settles in and won't leave me alone till I've turned it over a bit. For now though, the real story of her is worth knowing properly. Then one day, out in your own garden, or walking home some warm evening, you might spot one yourself and know exactly what you're looking at. Right, so what actually is a glowworm? First thing that throws people is the name, glowworm. It sounds like it should be some sort of worm, doesn't it? Something long and soft you'd find under a stone. But she isn't, not even close. She's a beetle, same family, more or less, as the ones you'd find under a log or scuttling across a path on a warm night, just built completely differently to what you'd picture. I didn't know that until I looked it up properly. Always thought, growing up, that a glowworm was exactly what it sounded like. Turns out the name's just stuck around from a time before anyone bothered sorting out what was a worm and what wasn't. And once a name like that gets going, nobody goes back and fixes it. So here we are, still calling her a worm, several hundred years on. She doesn't look like your average beetle either. If you're picturing one of the round, shiny, shelled sort, she's got none of that. Long body, soft, segmented, low to the ground, more like something you'd expect to find under a stone than flying about. And that's because, unlike most beetles, she never grows wings at all. Doesn't matter how old she gets, doesn't matter what stage of her life she's in, she's built to stay on the ground, full stop. That's not true of the males, mind. They do get wings, proper ones, and they can fly same as you'd expect a beetle to. So you end up with this odd situation where one half of the species is up in the air of an evening and the other half stuck down in the grass, never going anywhere, much at all. A bit of an unfair arrangement, if you ask me, but nobody asked the glowworms how they wanted it arranged. Before she's any of this though, before she's a fully grown adult sat glowing on a stem, she spends a long stretch of her life as something else altogether, a larva, and this bit takes a while. The best part of 2 years, some of them just living down in the leaf litter and the damp undergrowth, getting on with things. And what she gets on with, mostly, is eating snails, which sounds a bit much when you first hear it, I'll admit, but that's her whole job at that stage of life. She tracks them down by the slime trail they leave behind, follows it right to the snail, corners it, and then takes her time over the rest. Not quick about it either. It can take her hours working away at one meal, but there's no hurry to any of it. She's got 2 years to get through, and nowhere else she needs to be. Which, if you think about it, is good for us gardeners. It keeps the snail population down a bit, and might do a little to keep our cabbages in one piece while she's about it. She's doing some of us a favor out there, whether she knows it or not. All that eating, all that time, it's building up towards something. She's storing away everything she'll need later, because here's the strange part. Once she finally grows into an adult, she stops eating altogether. Not slows down, but stops, doesn't touch another meal for the rest of her life, however long that turns out to be. Whatever she's built up over those 2 years as a larva, that's what she's got. That's the lot, no topping up. So when she does finally become an adult, when she goes through that last change and ends up as the creature she'll be for the remainder of her life, she's already, in a sense, running on a countdown. She's not going to be around long as an adult, a few weeks usually, sometimes less, and every bit of that time is going to be spent on one thing only: finding a mate. That's it. That's the whole purpose of this stage of her life, as far as she's concerned. She's not out foraging, she's not building anything, she's not defending territory. She's got one job left to do, and everything about her, right down to the fact that she can't fly and can't eat anymore, is built around doing that one job as well as she possibly can. And the way she does it, the only way she's got available to her, is the light. That's what she spent all that stored up energy for, not for movement, not for hunting, none of that, just for this. The glow you'd see if you came across her on a summer night, tucked low in the grass, that soft green light coming off the last few segments of her body. That's her one tool, her one way of putting herself out there, in a world where she can't fly to find anyone and can't call out either. All she's got is the light and the hope that it's enough. I think that's what got me when I first read into it properly. How much she's given up just to get this one chance right. No more meals, no wings, no way of going looking herself. She's put everything into this single evening, or however many evenings she's got left in her, and all she can do now is climb up somewhere high enough to be seen and wait. It makes you think a bit about how some things in life you only get the one shot at it, and how they still go about it properly, regardless. No half measures, no holding a bit back for later, because there isn't a later, not for her. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself telling you all this, while I've still got half a job to finish out here. Let me get this lot sorted before the light goes altogether, and I'll carry on with the rest of it after. Right, that's the bed almost sorted. Took longer than I meant it to, but there we are, always the way out here. The robin's back, by the way. Been keeping half an eye on him while I've been working. He's got a spot he likes, just on the corner post of the fence, and he'll sit there watching for a good while before he does anything about it. Then, as soon as I turn the soil over, he's down like a shot, picking through whatever I've turned up for him. I don't mind him at all. Company of a sort, even if he's not really here for me. He's here for the worms. I've taken to calling him Alfie, after Alfie Boe, if you know the name, the singer. It seemed to fit, given the racket this one kicks up some mornings. Good little singer himself, this Robin. Turns out the real Alfie's not bad either, from what I've heard. He's a bold little thing, been coming round most of the summer now. Some days he'll get in close enough that I could nearly reach out and touch him, if I had a mind to try, which I don't, because I'd rather he kept coming back than went off and found somewhere else to be. I remember one day back in the spring, a bit of a wet one, everything was heavy and dripping, not really weather for being out at all. But he turned up anyway, same as ever, sat on that post looking thoroughly fed up about the rain, but not going anywhere regardless. I got the sense, watching him, that he'd rather be damp and fed than dry and hungry. Fair enough, I suppose, can't argue with that sort of logic. He's not the only one that comes round. There's a pair of blackbirds that turn up most days too, usually along the row of beans. They'll walk the whole line of them, one after another, hopping down between the plants like they're doing some sort of inspection, checking each one over properly before they move on to the next. I've never worked out what they're actually after, but they take it very seriously, whatever it is. And there's been a wood pigeon this last week or two that's taken to sitting up on the wire looking extremely pleased with itself for reasons known only to the pigeon. But it's the robin I notice most, maybe because he's the one that comes closest. Or maybe it's just that he's got a way of turning up, right when you need a bit of company and not a moment before. Funny how that works out sometimes. Some people put a fair bit of meaning on that, actually. Robins turning up when you least expect them. There's an old idea that goes back a long way that a robin appearing is meant to be some sort of sign, a visit from someone who's passed on. Some say, come to check in on you, or let you know they're still about somehow. I won't say it hasn't crossed my mind once or twice, watching him sit there on that post like he owns the place. There's something in it that feels like more than just a bird after worms, even if that's all it really is. Either way, believe it or not, he's good company, and I'll take that, whatever the reason behind it. I've been thinking, the last week or so, about what to do with the far end of the plot. Truth is, it's a new allotment for me, and when I took it on the weeds was shocking. Mare's tail everywhere, right through the soil, the kind that's next to impossible to properly get rid of once it's in. So this year, I've gone with lots of potatoes. Best thing for a plot like this in year one. Digging and earthing up helps break the mare's tail back a bit, season on season, not a permanent fix, but a start. That's the thing about this place, really. You start out with a plan for growing vegetables, and you end up with all sorts of other things going on that you never quite accounted for. The robin, the blackbirds, whatever's rustling about in the hedge that I never actually see, just hear. All of it just gets on with its business alongside mine, and I don't know that I'd have it any other way. Makes you wonder what else is out there that you never notice. All the stuff going on right under your nose that you'd never clock, unless you happen to stop and look at exactly the right moment. Like that glowworm from earlier, I'd have walked straight past that hedge 100 times, and never known she was there, if I hadn't happened to think of her that particular afternoon. Same with most things out here, I reckon. You only really see as much of it as you slow down enough to look for. Anyway, best crack on, the robin's given up on me for the minute. Gone off to try his luck somewhere else, I expect. Now the soil's settled back down and there's nothing left worth digging for. Can't say I blame him. I'd move on too, if I were him. There's a bit more to do before the light really starts to go. I'll get back to the rest of that story. Right, where was I? The glowworm up on her stem, waiting on the light to go. That's where she's at, this point in the evening. Down among the grass, near enough dark now, and she's already made her mind up about which stem she's climbing. Doesn't take her long to decide, from what I understand. She's not fussy about it, just needs something sturdy enough to hold her and tall enough to lift her clear of everything growing round it. So she starts up it, and I mean properly slow, not like anything you'd call climbing if you pictured it, more just a steady, careful sort of crawling, gripping on with everything she's got and pulling herself up a bit at a time. Stopping every so often too, whether that's to check her grip or just because there's no reason to hurry. I couldn't tell you, maybe a bit of both. And there's a reason for all this being so slow and careful. Every bit of climbing she does costs her something, uses up a bit of what she's got stored away. And remember, she's not getting any more of that. No meals left, so she's not about to waste it scrabbling about or rushing up the stem in a panic. She takes her time, because taking her time is actually the sensible way to do it, when you've only got the one lot of energy to see you through the rest of your life. Height matters to her though. More height means more chance of being seen, and being seen is the whole point of tonight, so she doesn't stop climbing the second it gets difficult. She pushes on a bit further than is comfortable, if she has to, because a stem that's just tall enough isn't as good as one that's properly tall. Every bit higher she manages is a bit more of the field she can be seen from. But there's a cost to that as well, and not just the energy. The higher she climbs, and the longer she sits there glowing away, the more exposed she is. She's sat right out in the open, doing the one thing practically guaranteed to draw attention to herself, and not all the attention she draws is going to be the kind she wants. Spiders, mostly, and other things that go hunting at night, and wouldn't say no to an easy meal sat glowing on a stem, doing nothing to defend itself. She's got no real way of fighting back if something comes for her. No sting, nothing sharp about her, nothing to put up much of a fight with. All she's got is the choice of whether to glow at all, and once she's made that choice, she's stuck with whatever comes of it. So really, every night she does this, she's taking a bit of a gamble, weighing up the chance of being found by a mate against the chance of being found by something else altogether. And she goes ahead and does it anyway, because there isn't really another option open to her. Not glowing means definitely not finding a mate. Glowing at least gives her a chance, even with the risk that comes attached to it. I think that's the bit that gets me most, actually, out of everything I've read about her. She's not glowing because she's certain it'll work out. She's glowing because it's the only thing that might. There's not many of us that get put in a position that plain. Most of the time we've got other options, other ways round a thing, other chances waiting further down the line if this one doesn't pan out. She hasn't got any of that. Just the one shot, The one light and no way of hedging her bets or keeping something back in reserve. And maybe that's why she doesn't hesitate over it when there's only the one way through. You stop weighing it up and you just get on with it. It's the ones of us with choices that end up standing about, going back and forth, wondering if we're doing the right thing. She hasn't got the luxury of that. She's just got the doing of it. Makes me wonder sometimes whether we complicate things for ourselves, having so many ways round a problem. Whether we'd get on with things a bit more easily if we only ever had the one option in front of us, same as her. Once she's settled at the height she wants, she gets herself into position, curls the back end of her body round and up, lifting it clear of the grass, angling it up toward the open sky rather than down toward the ground. That's important, that bit. If she just lit up facing sideways or down into the grass, hardly anyone would ever see her. She needs the light going up, out over the top of everything, where it's got a chance of being spotted by something flying past overhead. And then she just holds it there, doesn't fidget, doesn't shift about trying to get comfortable, doesn't so much as move unless she absolutely has to. Every bit of stillness she manages is a bit less energy wasted, and a clearer, steadier light for anyone that happens to be looking. She'll stay like that for hours, some nights, properly hours, just sat there, holding the one position, holding the one light, waiting on something she's got no way of calling for and no way of knowing whether it's even out there. Funny thing is, she won't do this forever. If nothing comes along after a certain point, she'll actually put the light out and climb back down, save what she's got left for another attempt the next night. She's not daft about it. She knows there's a limit to how much of this she can do, and she's not going to burn through everything she's got on one evening if there's a chance of trying again tomorrow. So there's a bit of sense mixed in with all that patience. She's not just sitting there blindly hoping. She's working within limits she's fully aware of, doing the best she can with what little she's got left, and knowing when to call it a night and try again. I don't know why, but I find that quite steadying thinking about it. All that patience, and all that risk, and all that sense mixed in together. She's not desperate about it. She's not frantic. She's just doing the one sensible thing available to her, as well as she's able, and accepting whatever comes of it. Anyway, best get on. I'll pick the story back up once I'm done. The light itself. That's the bit I found most interesting once I started reading into how it actually works, because it's not like anything else you'd normally think of as light. Think about most of the ways we make light ourselves. A bulb, a candle, a fire. All of them waste most of what they put out. A bulb got hot, didn't it? Well, the old incandescent ones did. Really hot, back in the day, if you've ever went to change one that's been on a while. Most of the energy going into that bulb isn't coming out as light at all. It's coming out as heat, wasted, doing nothing useful except warming the room a bit. She doesn't work like that. Whatever's going on inside her to produce that glow, barely any of it comes out as heat at all. Nearly the whole lot comes out as light instead. If you actually measured it properly, in a lab, you'd find she's about as efficient as anything in nature gets at turning energy into light. Better than a candle, better than an old-fashioned bulb by a long way. Somewhere in the high 90s, percentage-wise, actually becomes light rather than getting wasted as heat. Which is a strange thing to get your head round, that a little beetle sat in the grass has got better light-making machinery than most of what we've built ourselves, until fairly recently anyway. The way it actually happens underneath is a bit of chemistry. There's a substance inside her, a chemical she's been carrying since she was still a larva, stored up along with everything else she saved during those 2 years of eating snails. On its own, it doesn't do anything much. But when it meets oxygen, with the help of another bit of machinery inside her cells built specifically for the job, the two of them react together, and that reaction is what gives off the light. It's not something she has to think about or work at. It's not muscle or effort the way climbing the stem is. It's just chemistry, running the way it's built to run, same as it has in every one of her kind that's come before her. She didn't learn how to do it. She was just made this way right down in her cells, generations and generations back. There's a name for this sort of thing if you want it. Bioluminescence. Living light, more or less, if you wanted to translate it plainly. And she's not the only thing that does it. Not by a long way. There's things in the deep sea that manage it too. Fish and other bits and pieces down there in the dark, where sunlight never reaches. Some fungus does it. Certain kinds of plankton that light up the water itself. If you disturb it at night, it's a strange thing to see if you've ever come across it. All different creatures, completely unrelated to each other, all landing on more or less the same trick. Because it turns out to be a genuinely useful one if you need to be seen, or need to see in the pitch dark. But hers is a particularly good version of it. From what I understand, steady, controlled, held exactly where she wants it, for exactly as long as she wants it there. Not a flash, not a flicker she can't help. She's got proper control over it, switching it on when she needs to, and off again when she doesn't. That control matters more than you'd think, because it means she's not just glowing constantly, wasting away everything she's got on light that nobody's there to see. She's choosing when to switch it on. Evening coming in, dark settling properly, that's her moment. Not before, when there's still enough daylight that nobody would notice her anyway. She's not wasting a drop of what she's got. I read somewhere that if you could scale her light-making process up to the size of what we use to light a house, you'd barely need running the electric at all. The efficiency's that good. Which says something, doesn't it? All that we've built, all the engineering that's gone into light bulbs over the years, and there's a little beetle in the hedge that's had us beaten at it the whole time without even trying. Not that she'd know that, of course. She's not doing any of this to prove a point or show anybody up. She's just doing what she's built to do, using exactly what she's got, as well as it can possibly be used. No waste in it at all, not the way we tend to waste things. It's worth understanding a bit more about how that actually happens without getting too bogged down in it. There's two main things involved. One's a substance called luciferin. She's got a store of it inside her, built up over those 2 years as a lava. On its own, sitting there, it doesn't glow at all, just sits there, inert, waiting. The other thing is an enzyme called luciferase, which is really just a bit of biological machinery whose entire job is to speed along a particular reaction. And what it does is bring that luciferin together with oxygen in exactly the right way, at exactly the right moment. The second those three things meet properly, the luciferin, the oxygen, and the enzyme doing its job, the reaction happens and light comes out the other end of it. That's more or less the whole process. No spark needed, no heat needed, nothing burning or sparking or glowing hot, the way you'd expect light to need. Just the right ingredients meeting in the right place, and light being the result of it. Hold it back, and she doesn't. That's her switch, more or less. Simple as that, and she's had it built into her the whole time. Anyway, I'll leave the light making for now. Right, I did some watering when you weren't looking. It always takes longer than you think, once you actually get going with it. Never seems worth it while you're stood there with the can, and then a week later everything's looking better for it, and you can't remember why you were putting it off. It reminds me of something, actually. It takes me back a good few summers now, to the first allotment I ever had a go at. I didn't have a clue what I was taking on, if I'm honest. Took it over in a cold November, turned up with a few tools, and my rigger boots on, and not much of a plan beyond just clearing what was there and seeing what I'd got underneath it all. And there was a fair bit to clear, whole field of it, near enough. gone to tall weeds and mare's tail and brambles thick enough that you couldn't see the ground in places. It took me the best part of that whole winter just getting it back to bare soil, which, looking back, I did want, even if I wouldn't have said so at the time. He caught me one evening, must have been my first proper summer there, stood over my beans looking thoroughly confused about why half of them had gone yellow and sorry for themselves. And he wandered over, didn't say much at first, just had a look, prodded about a bit in the soil near the roots. Then he said, "You're drowning them, lad." Turned out I'd been watering them every evening, thinking that was just what you did, every single evening, regardless of whether they needed it or not. And he explained, patient as anything, that half of gardening isn't doing more, it's knowing when to leave well alone. Said the roots need to go looking for water themselves sometimes, deep down, and if you're forever handing it to them on a plate, they never bother developing properly. Get lazy, in a manner of speaking, stay near the surface where it's easy, and then the first proper dry spell comes along, and they've got nothing to fall back on. I didn't fully believe him at the time, if I'm honest. Seemed to go against the grain, holding back on watering when the things looked like they needed it. But I did, as he said, more or less, and sure enough, by midsummer, those beans had come right, and were doing better than half the other stuff on the plot that had been fussed over constantly. I think about that a fair bit, actually, when I'm out here of an evening with the can in my hand, wondering whether what I'm doing is actually helping, or whether I'm just doing something because it feels like I ought to be doing something. Not always the same thing, those two. Ted's gone now, passed on a good few years back. I just found out he wasn't about anymore. Plot changed hands, and that was that. Funny how quickly a place moves on from someone, once they're not there to keep at it. New fellow took over his patch within the month, had it looking completely different by the following spring. Still think about him though. Most times I'm out here doing something he'd have had an opinion on. I can practically hear him some evenings telling me I'm doing something wrong, or at least doing it the hard way when there was an easier way sat right there the whole time. I don't know that I've ever quite matched what he knew about any of it. 50 years of doing something teaches you things you can't really get any other way, I don't think. There's no shortcut to it, just time, and getting it wrong enough times that you eventually stop. That's the thing about this sort of hobby, if you can call it that. It's not really something you finish learning. Every year throws up something you hadn't seen before, some problem you didn't know you'd have, and you just muddle through it as best you can and hope you remember the lesson for next time. Half the time I don't, if I'm honest, make the same mistakes 2-3 years running before it finally sinks in properly. I sometimes wonder what Ted would make of this plot if he saw it now, whether he'd have a straight answer for the mare's tail, same as he seemed to have an answer for everything else. Probably would, knowing him. Probably would have had it sorted in half the time it's taking me, and made it look easy into the bargain, the way he did with everything. Anyway, that's enough of that. Getting a bit soft in my old age, thinking about him on a warm evening like this. He wouldn't have thanked me for going on about it. Knowing him, man of few words mostly, just like to get on with things. Right, best get back to her. I left her sat up on that stem a while back now, still glowing, still waiting on whatever might come of it. So let's talk about him for a bit, the one she's waiting on, because he's got his own side of this, and it's worth knowing, I think, before we get to how the night ends for either of them. He started out life more or less the same way she did. Egg, then larva, working his way through the undergrowth same as her, eating the same sort of thing, snails mostly, taking his time about it the way you have to when you've got 2 years ahead of you and nothing pressing to rush toward. No difference between them at that stage, really. Same start, same slow going. It's only once they're both fully grown that things properly split apart, because he comes out the other side of it looking nothing like her at all. Proper wings on him, a shell over his back, same as you'd expect off any other beetle, small, dark, built for flying rather than sitting still. You'd never look at the two of them side by side and think they were the same kind of creature, let alone the same species. And he doesn't glow, not like she does anyway. He's got a bit of light in him, if you know where to look, but nothing to speak of. Nothing that'd catch your eye across a field the way hers does. Nature's given him a different job to do tonight, and flying's the whole of it. So while she's sat still, holding her one position, holding her one light, he's out there covering ground. Properly covering it too. Fields, hedgerows, gardens, all sorts of stretches of land that she'll never see herself. Not once, not in her whole life. She's fixed to the one spot she started from. He's not fixed to anywhere. But here's the thing about him that I didn't expect reading into it. He's not flying about with any particular sense of where he's going. He's not homing in on her specifically, not following some trail she's laid down or some signal only he can pick up. All he's got to go on is his eyes, and whatever lights happen to be showing up down there in the dark below him. Which means, of everything going on tonight, his job might actually be the harder one. She just has to hold still and shine. He has to fly around an entire landscape in the pitch dark, trying to spot one small light among however many other small lights might be scattered about down there. And there's no guarantee, none at all, that he'll pass anywhere near enough to hers to ever clock it in the first place. Think about the scale of that for a second. A whole field, dark from edge to edge, and somewhere down in the grass. One particular light, no bigger than you'd get off a struck match, and he's got to spot it from up in the air, moving in conditions about as bad as they could be for seeing anything clearly at all. And he's not the only one out there trying. Other males, same night, same fields, all doing exactly the same thing he is. All searching the same stretch of dark for the same sort of light. So even the lights that are out there glowing haven't necessarily got just the one suitor on the way. It might have several, all converging on the same spot from different directions. None of them are aware the others are even in the running. Bit of luck involved. Then when you get down to it, however good his eyesight, however hard he's searching, there's a fair chunk of this that just comes down to whether he happens to look the right way at the right moment. Same as her, really sat up on her stem, with no way of making herself any more visible than she already is. Both of them doing everything they possibly can with what they've got, and both of them still leaving an awful lot down to chance. I don't know why, but that seems fairer to me somehow, once you know it works like that. Neither of them's got it easy. She's stuck holding a light and hoping. He's stuck flying blind and hoping, different sort of hoping, but hoping all the same, both of them. He'll cover a fair distance before the night's out, if he has to, further than you'd think something that size could manage in one evening. And he's burning through his own reserves doing it, same as she when she's sat still. Flying's not free either, energy-wise. He's spending what he's got, same as her, just spending it differently. She's spending her energy on staying lit and staying patient. He's spending his on covering ground. Neither of them's got long to get this right either. She'll only glow for so many nights before whatever she's got runs out completely. And he's not going to be flying about forever either. His time's limited too. Same short window the whole species seems to work within. So there's a bit of pressure in it, somewhere under all that patience, a clock running on both of them, even if neither of them's got any way of checking it. I think that's worth remembering next time you're out on a warm night and you happen to catch one of these lights down in the grass. There's a fair bit going on behind that little glow that you'd never guess just looking at it. A whole 2 years getting to this point, a whole gamble being run every evening she does it. And somewhere out there, in the dark past the hedge, something else entirely, searching, hoping to get lucky, same as her. Anyway, I'll leave him up there in the dark for now. still searching. I'll tell you a story about a glowworm, about the night she nearly gave up on herself. She'd had a hard summer of it, night after night up that stem, pouring everything she had into her light and getting nothing back for it. Not a flicker of interest, not a sign that anything out there had even noticed she existed. That kind of tiredness wears you down in a different way. It's not from doing too much. It's from caring and hoping and getting nothing back, night after night, until you start wondering whether the hoping was ever worth it. So that evening she nearly didn't climb, sat low in the leaf litter, feeling the weight of every night before this one. Why bother lighting herself up again, out in front of the whole dark field, just to be overlooked one more time? It's easier to stay small, stay hidden, save herself the disappointment of trying again for nothing. But something in her wouldn't let her stay down there, some stubborn bit of her that hadn't given up, even though most of her felt like it wanted to. So she climbed. Slowly, same as always, and when she got to the top, she didn't hold back to protect herself. She gave it everything, lit herself up completely, as bright as she'd ever managed, as though it were the very first night she'd tried this. Because a dimmed light doesn't protect you from anything, it just means you're less likely to be found, and you'll have carried the fear for nothing anyway. If you're going to risk being overlooked, you may as well be overlooked while being fully yourself, rather than while holding half of it back. I think about her a lot, that particular night, how much it must have taken out of her, in whatever way a small creature carries something like that, to keep offering herself up after so many quiet nights. Nobody would have blamed her for stopping. Nobody would even have known, but she climbed anyway and shone anyway, not knowing if this night would turn out any different from the rest. That's the part that stays with me, not whether she was ever found, just that she never let the disappointment talk her into hiding. She let herself be seen, again and again, even after nights that gave her nothing, because some part of her still believed she was worth finding. So if there's something in you tonight that's grown tired from shining without being seen, something you've quietly started dimming, just to protect yourself from one more letdown, let this be a small nudge the other way. You're allowed to glow fully, even after nights that gave you nothing. Especially after nights like that, your light was never wasted, even on the nights nobody came. So shine bright, don't hold anything back out of doubt or fear, or one too many quiet nights. You are enough, exactly as you are, shining as bright as you're able. Right, let's finish this properly. Her and him, and how tonight turns out. She's still up there when we left her, stem swaying just slightly, the way they do even on a night with barely any breeze at all. Light held steady, same as it's been the whole time. She's got no idea how long she's been at it. Time doesn't work the same for her as it does for us, sat there with nothing but the glow and the waiting. And somewhere out past the hedges, he's still going, covering ground he's never covered before, passing lights that aren't hers, circling back on ones he's already checked, because in the pitch dark, it's easy to lose track of what you've already looked at and what you haven't. It's slow going for him too, in its own way. Not slow like her climbing, slow like searching a field you can't properly see, hoping you'll know the right light when you finally come across it. I don't know, in the end, whether tonight's her night. I've thought about that a fair bit writing all this out, whether I should tell you she gets found, wrap it up neat, give you the ending you'd probably want. But I don't think that's really true to how it goes for her, most nights. Some nights she does get found. Most nights, if I'm honest, she doesn't. She climbs back down eventually, having glowed her best, having done everything that was hers to do, and nothing comes of it, and she tries again the next night regardless. So I'll leave it there tonight, if that's all right. Her, still glowing. Him, still searching, neither one of them knowing yet how it ends. Same as most nights, for most of us, if we're honest about it. You rarely get to know how something ends while you're still in the middle of it. You just keep doing your bit and let the night decide the rest of it in its own time. I've come back in now, myself, feet up for a minute before I turn in, which I probably should do sooner rather than later, the hours I've been keeping lately. Funny, thinking back over this evening, started out just doing a few jobs, same as any other evening out here. I didn't set out to think about glowworms at all, just happened to look at the hedge at the wrong moment, or the right one, depending how you look at it, and here we are, hours later, having gone the whole way round the houses with it. That's allotment life though, isn't it? You go out to get one thing done, and you come back in having thought about entirely different things altogether. Snails and beetles, and old Ted and robins named after singers, and whatever else drifted through while my hands were busy with something else. I don't know that I'd get half these thoughts anywhere else, if I'm honest. Something about being out there, hands in the soil, nothing much demanding your attention, that lets the rest of it come loose a bit. I'll be back out there again tomorrow, no doubt. Same jobs waiting, more or less. Beans will need tying in again before long. That area with the potatoes will want keeping an eye on. Robin will be back too. I'd put money on it. Sat up on that post first thing, waiting to see what I turn up for him. And somewhere out there, past my hedge and every other hedge between here and wherever she is, she'll likely climb again tomorrow evening too. Same as tonight, same as every night before this one, not because she knows for certain it'll come to anything, but because climbing and glowing properly and fully is the one thing that's hers to do. And she'll keep doing it night after night, for as long as she's got left to give it. I think that stayed with me most out of everything tonight, not the facts of her, though those are worth knowing. Not even the little stories I came up with along the way, though. I don't know where else they'd have come from, if not an evening like this. Just her, still climbing, still glowing, not knowing how it ends and getting on with it regardless. There's something in that worth taking to bed with you tonight. I think, whoever's listening to this, wherever you are, whatever you've got waiting for you tomorrow, whatever's still unresolved in your own life that you don't have an answer for yet, you don't need the answer tonight. You just need to do the bit that's yours. Rest, if that's what's yours to do right now. Let go of whatever you've been holding onto too tight. The rest of it'll still be there in the morning, same as her hedge will, same as my allotment will, waiting patiently for whoever comes back to it next. And you're safe right where you are, right now, whatever else has been going on. Nothing needs sorting tonight, nothing needs deciding or fixing or figuring out before you close your eyes. All of that can simply wait exactly where you left it, and it'll still be there tomorrow, patient as anything, whenever you're ready to pick it back up. For now, you can just let your shoulders drop a little. Let your hands go soft wherever they're resting. Let your breathing slow right down in its own time, the way it always does once you stop paying attention to it. There's nowhere else you need to be right now, except exactly here, warm and settled, and done for the day. Whatever tomorrow brings, it'll keep. It always does. Tonight, all you've got to do is rest. For now, though, it's dark outside, and I think that's me done for tonight. Sleep well.